Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia Osmond, and I'm a fourth-year student at MUN in the School of Human Kinetics and Recreation. Thank you so much for participating in my study. You've now entered the second part of the study, which is a short ergonomics education session that will introduce you to some principles of ergonomics that are most relevant to you as an undergraduate university student. So I'll start with a brief overview of today's presentation. First, we'll talk about ergonomics and how it pertains to sedentary work. Then we'll talk about why you should care about ergonomics as a student. Next, we'll talk about workstation design and working posture. And lastly, we'll talk about some occupational risk factors that are most relevant to you as a student. So what is ergonomics? Ergonomics is the application of the psychological and physiological principles to the design of products, processes, and systems. Ergonomics is concerned with understanding the interactions between humans and other elements of a system, and its goal is to optimize human performance. Ergonomics combines numerous academic disciplines such as anatomy, biomechanics, engineering, and many more. There are three domains of ergonomics. The first is physical ergonomics, which focuses on the anatomical, biomechanical, and physiological components of work. Next is cognitive ergonomics, which shows how mental processes interact with other components of a system. And lastly, there's organizational ergonomics, which looks at the system as a whole, and specifically the socio-technical system. Ergonomics can be found across many academic and professional occupations. Ergonomic professionals are employed in academia as professors and researchers, and ergonomists are employed as their own profession in multiple different disciplines. Ergonomics is used in rehabilitation professions such as physical and occupational therapy, and ergonomics is used in occupational health and safety to protect the well-being of workers. So many different people can benefit from ergonomics. Almost everyone can. And this typically occurs in 4 different categories. And these are system influencers, system decision makers, system experts, and system actors. So you may be wondering as a student if you fall into any of these categories. And the answer is yes. Students are workers, making them system actors. Students are employees of academia, and your job is to learn, think critically, and develop lifelong skills. And students fall under the specific category of workers of sedentary workers. So sedentary workers are employees who sit for extended periods of time to complete their work. There are many different sedentary occupations, such as office workers, transport workers, clerical workers, and students like yourself. So sedentary workers engage in sedentary behavior, and sedentary behavior is any waking behavior that occurs in a seated or reclined position that uses little energy. Sedentary behavior is alarming because it causes increased risk of numerous conditions such as cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, some cancers, pulmonary disease, and all-cause mortality. So due to these risks, sedentary behavior is a concern, and sedentary workers spend most of their day engaged in these behaviors. So we need to take a special look at sedentary workers. It's also important to note that even with high levels of physical activity, this cannot replace sedentary behavior. So this means that regardless of the time you spend being active, playing sports, going to the gym, whatever you may do, your time engaging in sedentary behavior will still have a negative impact of your health. So being active does not cancel out your sedentary behavior. So outside of those risks, there are specific risks for sedentary workers themselves. Sedentary workers are at increased risk for developing many physical symptoms when their working posture or working conditions are poor. And these conditions are musculoskeletal disorders, headaches, eye strain, and computer vision syndrome. So why should you as an undergraduate university student care about ergonomics? Well, ergonomics is important for sedentary workers like yourself, as applying ergonomic principles in your work will decrease the likelihood of developing painful physical symptoms and conditions, like the ones we just talked about, such as musculoskeletal disorders, headaches, and some of the other conditions that are concurrent with sedentary behavior. Knowledge of proper working posture, workstation setups, and how to identify occupational risk factors will protect against these symptoms. So that's why ergonomics is important for you as a student. Also, a working environment that is designed ergonomically can increase work performance, reduce stress, and just make you enjoy your time doing your schoolwork a little bit more. And another important consideration for students is you don't have a boss or a large corporation behind you that's pushing for you to get the proper desk or the proper chair or the proper whatever you may need to make your workstation a little bit safer. So you need to be your own advocate and learn these principles for yourself so you can protect yourself when you're working. So the first way that we can protect ourselves at work is having a good working posture. And this is specifically important for students as your working environment occurs in a lot of different places, like the classroom, the library, the kitchen table, and even your bed. I know I'm guilty of that myself. However, most often you are seated in a chair, at a table, or a desk. So it's important to understand proper sitting posture so you can protect yourself while you're doing so. It's also important for you to understand proper standing posture. As we're going to learn a little bit later, an effective sit to stand ratio is key for you as sedentary workers, students. So first we'll chat about sitting posture. So this little infographic shows a good versus bad sitting posture. So when seated, your head should be up with your eyes forward and your neck relaxed. Your shoulders should be down and relaxed with your shoulder blades pulled back slightly. Your back should be neutral, resting against the back of your chair, and your weight should be evenly distributed across your hips. Your feet should be placed flat on the floor with your knees in a 90-degree position. So it's super important that you sit for no more than 30 minutes at a time. So small standing or walking breaks can be effective. However, it's most effective to switch between sitting and standing of intervals of 30 minutes. So if you sit for 30 minutes, you should stand for 30 minutes. That's the best way to protect yourself. So to properly employ the sit-stand ratio, we need to understand proper standing posture. So when standing, you should stand upright with your shoulders retracted. You should keep your head up and eyes forward and pull in your abdomen to protect your back. Your knees should be relaxed with your feet apart, and your weight should be evenly distributed between the balls of your feet. So now that we know a bit more about how we should work in terms of our posture, we should know a bit about where we should work. So workstation design is super important. So the Rapid Office Strain Index provides details of how to properly design office workstations. So this is appropriate for students as a student workstation is most similar to an office workstation. Right now, there is no specific recommendations for students themselves. The ROSA has 8 different categories. However, we're going to focus on 6 categories that are most applicable to students. And by using the ROSA, we can highlight the most important postural considerations and work design elements for you as students. So first, we're going to look at your seat pan height. So when considering the height of your seat pan, it should be placed so that your knees are at 90 degrees, as seen in the first image here on the left. Your feet should be touching flat on the floor with enough space under your desk so you can move your legs freely. Your seat pan should be adjustable to make this appropriate accommodation. So next, we're going to look at seat pan depth. So when you're seated in your chair, there should be approximately 8 centimeters or 3 inches of space between your knee and the edge of your seat. And your seat pan should be adjustable as well to make this accommodation. So next, when looking at armrests, your armrest should be positioned so that your elbows are supported at 90 degrees and that your shoulders are relaxed and comfortable. If your armrests are too high or too low, this will increase the risk of muscular fatigue. It's also important that you have pads on your armrests, as having the pads will reduce the risk of contact stress on your arms. So next we'll look at back support. So your chair should have a backrest, and your chair should allow for proper lumbar support. So that's support in your low back, as we can see here on the far left. Your chair should have the ability to recline, as this is proven to be most comfortable and protective for your back. And this recline should be about 95 to 110 degrees. So next, looking at your monitor, your screen should be placed about an arm's length away and positioned at eye level. However, I understand that many students use laptops. I do myself, so an arm's length away isn't always possible, so you can type. However, you should still try to put your monitor at eye level, because looking up or looking down for too long will increase stress on your neck. So next, when looking at your keyboard, the most important thing to know here is while you're typing, your wrist should be straight with your shoulders relaxed. So now that we know how to sit and stand while working and the best design elements for your workstation, we also need to know what occupational risk factors are, the ones that are most common for you as students, and how to solve them. So occupational risk factors are factors that individuals are exposed to at work, which interferes with the worker's ability to perform in the workplace. And there are 4 specific ones we will look at for students. The first one being musculoskeletal pain. So some signs of that is pain or stiffness in one or more muscle group, and also muscular fatigue while working. Some ways to resolve this problem is following the ROSA postural guidelines that we just chatted about, and also taking frequent breaks from repetitive tasks is very helpful. Another occupational risk factor is prolonged sitting. So this can look like sitting for excessive periods of time with absolutely no standing breaks. And you can also experience pain in your glutes or upper legs from sitting for too long. So a couple ways to resolve this one is employing a proper sit to stand ratio of 1:1, 30 minutes at a time, like we just talked about. And also, I understand this isn't always possible, or you may not have the facilities for a proper standing desk. So ways to kind of break up prolonged sitting is if you're, say, in the classroom or at the library, taking the long way to the bathroom or to the water fountain can help add some more movement into your work routine, or just taking small breaks to walk around your house or wherever you may be doing your schoolwork. That will definitely help you out. Another risk factor is excessive screen time. So some signs of excessive screen time are dry, tired, or sore eyes, headaches, and also screen time that is more than 8 hours a day. So a couple ways to move away from excessive screen time is using paper methods of note-taking or reading physical books instead of ebooks where possible. And also reducing recreational screen time can help out a whole lot. I know a lot of us right now are in online school, so we're confined to our computers for most of our learning. But if we take a bit more of a break from scrolling on our social media, watching TV, or playing video games, that'll help out from the excessive screen time point of view. The last one we're going to chat about is overworking or burnout and lack of sleep. So some signs of this one are spending more than 50 hours a week on schoolwork, feeling unmotivated, having trouble focusing, or feeling tired. Creating a good study schedule that allows for rest will really help with this. Also making sure you're getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep is helpful, and allowing yourself to take breaks and participate in activities that you enjoy. School doesn't need to be your whole life. Spending time with your friends, going for walks, working out, baking, whatever your hobbies may be, can really help out with that. So that is everything I have for today. The most important things I want you to remember is that you are a worker, and the sedentary nature of your occupation, if treated incorrectly, can lead to some undesirable consequences, as we talked about. However, having postural awareness, using the ROSA guidelines, and keeping your eye out for occupational risk factors will help you a lot when you're working. So the last thing I want you to know is that school shouldn't hurt. So if you're finding when you're doing your schoolwork, you're experiencing a good bit of pain, look at the way that you're sitting, standing, your office workstation design, and challenge those elements and try and improve them for yourself, as you definitely can with these tips. So thank you so much. I truly appreciate your participation in my study. If you choose to move on to the third part of the study, you can head back to the Qualtrics link, and there'll be one final short questionnaire there. Thank you so much.